American Consul General in Dhaka, Archer Blood, saw the nightmare unfold when the Pakistani army unleashed Operation Searchlight, armed with US supplied weapons. Pakistani military didn't just wage a war, they executed a massacre. Millions killed, countless others displaced, some of whom were Blood's friends. Archer Blood and his team didn't hesitate. They began reporting the atrocities, sending urgent dispatches to Washington. Detailed, desperate, Henry Kissinger and his team at White House choose to ignore the situation. Cold, calculated silence. Frustration boiled over, and a desperate Archer Blood and his colleagues fired off a telegram, a scathing indictment of the American government's moral collapse. It was the Blood telegram. In 1947, Pakistan was born divided. Two wings, East and West, separated by 1,000 miles of secular India.
Pakistan is a nation united only by religion. West Pakistan has the money and the government and the resources. East Pakistan has the poverty and the misery.
Pakistan's democratic foundations were fragile. Its army, dominated by Urdu-speaking Punjabis, frequently imposed martial law.
The elites of the Pakistan movement were rich landowning zamindars from UP and Bihar, migrated to Pakistan and got sidelined by the so-called martial race, the West Punjabis, who dominated the military.
When East demanded democratic representation, it marked the beginning of a long struggle.
A struggle for democracy, a struggle to hold general elections.
Eventually, Pakistan's military dictator, Yahya Khan, announced elections.
Elections will take place. I have left this decision to the Chief Election Commissioner, who is a completely independent body.
The 1970 election was a critical test of democracy. It was Pakistan's first direct elections in 23 years, allowing all adults, including women, to vote. Campaigning was in full swing. Weeks before the election, disaster struck East Pakistan. Cyclone Bhola, the deadliest cyclone ever recorded, claimed the lives of 3 to 5 lakh people. Amid this devastation, the federal government's indifference only fueled the growing resentment. Sheikh Mujib Arrested, a leader of Awami League, personally oversaw the rescue operations. Returning to Dhaka, he declared, "They have a huge army, but it was left to British Marines to bury our dead." Capturing the East's growing frustration, Mujib was certain of his victory. When the results came in, Awami League won a landslide victory. Mujib was set to become Prime Minister of Pakistan, having won twice as many seats as Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who had ridden a populist wave to an impressive victory in West Pakistan. In response, Yahya and Bhutto, Mujib's two political rivals in West Pakistan, united to indefinitely postpone the opening of National Assembly.
Pakistan's Awami League won an absolute majority in the National Assembly. The Assembly was due to convene on March 3rd. It would draft a new constitution. Given a majority voice in the new Assembly, things would be different for East Pakistan. But the Assembly never met. Under pressure from West Pakistan's political leader, Ali Bhutto, President Yahya Khan postponed the Assembly.
This blatant breach of trust ignited a firestorm of anger across Bengal. Mujib, the voice of his people, launched a Gandhian-style non-cooperation movement.
Nobody should try to suppress the 70 million people. When they are determined to achieve something, nobody can suppress them. Everything is collapsed. There is no administration. The people are obeying my order, not their order.
On March 7th, Mujib addressed a massive rally of over 1 million people at Racecourse, solidifying his leadership. As the political crisis deepened in Pakistan, international dynamics, particularly the role of United States, became crucial. US President Richard Nixon shared a deep rapport with Pakistan's leadership. As Vice President, he had toured the Indian subcontinent but was unimpressed by India. Nehru's British English and his policy of non-alignment left him cold. In contrast, he found Pakistanis authentic, staunchly anti-communist and pro-American. Nixon returned to Washington as a strong advocate for aiding Pakistan, and between 1954 and 65, the US supplied $2 billion worth of military hardware to Pakistan, apparently to target communism. When Nixon was out of power and his career seemed over, Pakistanis welcomed him warmly, in stark contrast to chilly reception he received in India. Nixon and his national security advisor, Henry Kissinger's hatred for India and Indians ran so deep that they made numerous racist comments. This hatred was particularly intense towards Indira Gandhi.
Unattractive women in the
As it's subtle flattery. That's how they survived 600 years. They're great to suck up to people in key positions.
On the contrary, a unique bromance formed between Nixon and Yahya Khan. Nixon, known for his reserved nature, genuinely liked the Pakistani general, often speaking of Yahya with unusual mix of admiration and affection. As Pakistan teetered on a brink of disintegration, Nixon's blind faith in Yahya's judgment sealed the fate of millions. On 13th March, before the killings began, he made the case for inaction. Protests erupted across East Pakistan, forcing Yahya to announce 25th March as a new date for opening National Assembly. Negotiations with Mujib began at Dhaka, but made little progress. Yahya abandoned the talks on March 25th, flying back
While
to Karachi.
Yahya Khan and the politicians of the West pretend to negotiate with Mujib Rahman, the Pakistan military machine prepares to crack down. By ship and secret airlift, troops are brought to Dhaka. General Dictatorship Khan, popularly known as the Butcher, is sworn in as military governor. On the night of March 25th, the army moves to crush Bengal.
The Pakistani army launched Operation Searchlight. Archer Bled, the US Consul General in Dhaka, witnessed the horror as tracer bullets lit up the night sky. US supplied tanks meant to counter communism were used to crush democratic aspirations.
In sight, Sheikh Mujib took over the administration and proclaimed an independent Bangladesh. He was taken prisoner.
Soldiers burned down media houses, locked down foreign journalists, and cut communication lines, doing everything possible to conceal the operation from the world. Archer Bled and his team swung into action, gathering reliable information from US aid workers, Christian missionaries, and American citizens. Unknown to Yahya, they had a secret wireless transmitter and began relaying information back to Washington, D.C. Pakistani soldiers stormed the Dhaka University and opened fire on students. Some of the worst killings occurred at Jagannath Hall.
Surviving students and professors are made to dig their own graves before the army shoots them.
Archer Bled and his team continued relaying telegrams. Girls' dormitories set on fire, and they were machine gunned as they fled the buildings. Girls raped, shot, and hung from fans. US supplied bombers used to bomb civilians. Helicopters used for supplies. 500 to 1,000 students killed. 6 to 800 Bengali police killed. Hindus undeniably the special focus of military brutality. Hindu neighborhoods burned in Dhaka. Hindu temples set on fire by the army. Pakistani army and non-Bengali Muslims systematically murdering Bengalis and Hindus. Bled urged his superiors not to believe false assertions from Pakistan and insisted on protesting, even if only privately. Kissinger and Nixon closely monitored cables from Dhaka, but were reluctant to put pressure on Yahya. Nixon entrusted Yahya with the top-secret task of opening a channel between US and China, which Yahya managed carefully. He personally carried Washington, D.C.'s messages to Beijing, eventually setting up a secret meeting between Kissinger and Shaw and Lai at the cost of innocent Bengali lives. After army secured cities, their brutality extended into the villages. There, the horrors continued, targeted killings and systematic raping of women. Pakistani soldiers kept a grim tally, maintaining a kill count on Hindus, turning their genocidal campaign into a cold game to be played.
In the eyes of the generals in Rawalpindi was that they would be outpopulated within Greater Pakistan by Bengali-speaking East Pakistanis, who they saw as half Hindu and an inferior race of their physical features and because of their proximity in cultural traditions and the way they dressed and the way they spoke. What led to Operation Searchlight, Pakistani army sought to purge East Pakistan of the inferior race, the Hindu community, of the intellectuals, of the left-leaning political leadership.
After enduring 12 grueling days of genocide, Archer Bled, along with US aid and USICS staff, frustrated with Washington's silence. They sent a confidential Dissent cable, the strongest criticism of US foreign policy ever, delivered by its own diplomats. They condemned the US government's failure to uphold democracy, denouncing its moral bankruptcy. Even the USSR protested in defense of democracy, condemning the arrest of democratically elected leader. Back at White House, the Nixon administration's policy remained unchanged, even after open rebellion by their Dhaka Consulate on the ground. Despite being presented with multiple options to address the crisis, Nixon chose not to exert pressure on Yahya. In a handwritten note, he stated, "Don't squeeze Yahya at this time." A long battle had just begun for the liberation of Bangladesh. From the very day of the crackdown, refugees flooded into India.
An exodus the like of which the world had not known. An avalanche averaging 40,000 refugees a day.
And the country allowed overwhelming tide of Bengali refugees to enter.
Streamed out of East Pakistan, their homeland, to West Bengal, Assam, Tripura and Meghalaya on the Indian side. Number of refugees who fled from East Bengal was to nearly 10 million, more than the population of many countries in the world.
Yet, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi concealed a grim truth from her citizens. Over 90% of these refugees were Hindus. This disturbing fact, openly shared by Prime Minister's Principal Secretary, Huxer, with Kissinger, was carefully hidden from Indians. Protect the secular fabric of the nation. Pakistan's 1971 massacre of its people was starkly different. The US, led by Nixon, allied with genocidal military dictator, while the Soviet Union supported democratic India. Did you know about Pakistan Army's genocidal campaign? If you'd like to see more videos on this topic or others, let us know. Share your thoughts in the comments below.